And before we get to all those guests, though, we're going to have Brian Potts on the show, who's managing partner and chief client officer of Third Stage Consulting. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So we're at an interesting time right now, coming out of the Super Bowl. We're leading up to Valentine's Day, so football and love, I guess, are sort of maybe on our minds. Maybe not all together, all at once, but those two things are on our mind, and we wanted to talk a bit about ERP vendors and how they fit into different situations that we might love. And so, Paresa, you have some questions for Brian that you wanted to cover, so I'll turn it over to you.
I do. Well, I have to say, first of all, Brian Potts is one of my favorite bloggers on the Third Stage website. The content he puts out is always so interesting. I know he wrote a blog about comparing ERP systems to our favorite beer selection. That was a good one. And he recently put one out that was relating ERP systems to our favorite NFL team. So, Brian, if I can, I want to talk about that one. You know, you walked through a handful of different NFL teams, a handful of different ERP systems, and I'm curious, you know, the first one that you came out of the gate with was Oracle is like the Dallas Cowboys. So tell me a little bit about that. Why is that?
So let's think on a global scale. When you ask somebody in anywhere to name a football team besides somebody that's got a hardcore fan in their city, you ask me, I'm going to say Denver Broncos. But if you ask somebody that doesn't have a football team in their hometown and say, name an NFL football team, one of the first ones that comes out in a lot of cases is the Dallas Cowboys. Same with ERP, is if you ask somebody, name ERPs. A lot of people that don't know the ERP world can't name ERP. Even a lot of people who are in the ERP world struggle when you throw it at them to start rattling off names. But Oracle is one that always comes out on the top, and it's just a well-branded name, well-respected. And it's also got, because of that, I think, gained a sort of a love-hate relationship with a lot of people.
That makes sense. I think it was our last episode, right, where we were saying, well, I was saying Oracle is like the Tom Brady, but I'll take it. Dallas Cowboys, too. I mean, they're great. You're right. I have some friends who kind of are floaters. They're not really into NFL, but they claim the Cowboys as their team when they're talking about it. So that's very true. Another one, you said QAD is like the Cleveland Browns. What's that about?
Yeah, so kind of a flash from the past. It's been a while since the Browns have made a name. They're starting to come back a little bit. And same with QAD. QAD, and what really led to this analogy, first and foremost, is the fan base. If you go to a QAD conference, for example, you're going to find a large number of companies that have been on that platform for 30 plus years that will not move, will never move. They've got a very structured, long-standing client base. Likewise, the Browns, my brother included, have had a fan base that doesn't leave. They've been through some troubling times. They moved. They went to a new city, and they came back, and they still have a fan base. That's pretty strong attention to a football team and pretty loyal fan base in both regards. So thought that was a fair analogy.
That is fair. And I saw on the blog you said, "Welcome to the dog pound." Is that their saying?
That is, if you've been to a Cleveland game there, the dog pound is called a rowdy group in the end zone.
Oh, that is so funny. That takes me to a tangent. Have you heard of the Bills Mafia?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. And I hadn't heard about it until they just recently were in one of the championships. I don't know which one, but they were there.
NFC. Or AFC,
yeah.
I should say.
Okay. Got it. Thanks, Eric. They are a little bit crazy. Their tailgating traditions are climbing on top of their car and then jumping onto their table at the tailgate to break it in half. So, I mean, to our listeners, Brian, Eric, you guys got to YouTube this after the show. It's ridiculous.
Hope to check that out.
Fan bases can make or break it, I'd say. So, okay, you have a few other ones on here. I'll let our readers go find the blog and read about it, but tell me about your favorite. Which one do you love the most? Which ERP system and I guess NFL team?
Well, that's a tough one because as an independent advisor, I truly don't have a favorite. And here, one thing maybe we can draw relevance here is favoritism. And a favorite ERP does not mean the best ERP. Likewise, a favorite football team does not mean the best football team. It's about finding a match that sometimes even outside of functionality, something that you can culturally align with, something that you can relate to, something that you can use within your organization. So, finding your favorite football team is very relevant in that regards to finding the right ERP. It might not be the most popular, the highest sold. It might not have the greatest user base, but it fits to your organization, your company, and you've built a relationship with it. And that's far more important than having a Super Bowl champion, for example, in your ERP quadrant.
That's true. And I mean, I can say that with the Denver Broncos, they may not be the most popular or great right now, but you stay loyal as a fan if you're a true fan.
I think we're all Bronco fans, Yes, if I had to choose one.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
Well, what about, I was going to ask maybe sort of a speed round session here, ad hoc speed round session. If you were to look at different scenarios, maybe that'd be an easier way to pick a ERP system you love the most. So, for example, if you were a small distribution company, single site, fairly vanilla, 20, 30 employees, let's just say, scenario wise, what would your favorite system or systems be, the one that you would love the most in that scenario?
Yeah, in that case, I would base it on my growth projections and any complexities. Frankly, one thing we look at it at that level, I would still ask the question, do I need ERP? There's a lot of side solutions. There's a lot of bolt-ons to QuickBooks that can actually handle that scenario. Outside of that, I might start looking at the NetSuite, Acumatica. Personally, Odoo, because it gives a little bit more flexibility in there to modify it to grow an organization. But
what about a mid-size? Let's call it a mid-size manufacturing distribution company. We've got a few locations, maybe in a couple different countries. Couple hundred employees, still growing fairly steadily, but I've outgrown QuickBooks or I've outgrown my old legacy system. What ERP system or systems do you love most in that case?
Yeah, well, the international component throws a little bit in there. I'd start looking at a more stable manufacturing solution. I'd look at the lines for call it a more legacy feel looking, a robust system. I'd look at the Epicor's Infor round. If you're looking, NetSuite would certainly fit well in that. Their manufacturing end is growing pretty significantly. And then on maybe a Microsoft, due to the international component, the ability to, replicate across regions if I'm looking at expansion, M&A activity or anything like that.
Yeah. And then how about a big multinational company with a few thousand employees? I've got a bunch of different systems in place. I've grown through acquisition, and I've got a hodgepodge of systems. Now I'm trying to consolidate, trying to standardize my operations. What are some of the best options that you might shortlist there?
Yeah, so in this case, I know the go-to answer might be tier one. However, I would ask the question, what industry am I in right now? And that's what's going to probably determine the route. And the reason I ask that is there's some platforms that can handle pretty significant scale, multinational in certain industries. I'd look in, like IFS we reference quite a bit, or Dynamics is starting to show some capability in that round, and then Oracle, SAP certainly fit that roadmap. But you want to look at, I think, the vertical focus and look at also the vertical integration of activities. So there's a lot of questions that go into picking the right system, and a lot of, you've got the name, the ERP name that might most relevantly fit a general scenario, but there could be some aspects to your business that could put you in a completely different situation.
Yeah, makes sense. And then what about just in general CRM systems? Any favorites or ones that we see our clients choosing more often than others or loving more often than others?
Well, yeah, so you look at Salesforce, and they've got, call it the number one spot. They've got that Super Bowl win in a sense, but with that comes complexity and cost. So that I wouldn't say that's my favorite. You look at some of the up and comers. Zoho's pretty cool. You look at like a HubSpot. for a free application that builds into a marketing automation system, it's pretty clean. There's a lot of, on the CRM front, the trick is to understand how much CRM you really need. If you've got levels of compensation and variable commissions and multiple channels of sales, you're going to need something a little bit more robust on the Dynamics or Salesforce side. If you've got a straightforward sales line and you're selling a single product or service, then you can get something, maybe a tier 2 off the shelf SaaS model that's a little bit easier to use and lower cost.
Yeah. Good. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. I know you and I, Brian, and all of our team, really at the third stage, people ask us a lot, what's the best ERP system out there, or what's your favorite ERP system? Almost like, since we're independent, they're trying to bait us into saying there's a best one, or there's one that we love the most. And I think that's where you and I are both pretty steadfast about. There is no one best or favorite one out there. It just depends on the scenario and what the needs are. So I think,
yeah, to some people, the Cleveland Browns are the best.
Right. I mean, I think the Denver Broncos, I can't even say it. I was going to say I think they're the best, but I can't lie on the show.
Next year.
They're terrible. They're just not good at all. Maybe next year. So more importantly, or maybe just as importantly then, have you planned anything out for Valentine's Day with your wife and family, Brian?
I'm going to keep that on the down low.
Got it.
But yes,
Okay.
we've got some plans with still in semi-quarantine here. It's a little bit more difficult, but we've got a fun evening planned.
Good. I wish I could say the same. I should probably get on that. And, start.
No, me too. Way to be ahead of the curve, Brent.
I know. Way to make us look bad.
Romantic at heart.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being on again, Brian. Really appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks for having
You
me.
bet. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be with Amanda Patton, and we're going to talk about her experience and our team's experience helping a client through their early stages of transformation, and it's an e-commerce distribution company, so it's a consumer product company. So it'll be a good discussion. We'll look forward to that, and we'll be right back after a quick break. You're listening to Transformation Ground Control.